Well, today is a great day because this is the day we start rigging the ship. Just to go through the sequence with you, we start with the main mast, and you'll start on the starboard side, put the first two shrouds on, then to the port side, put those two shrouds on, and then work your way backwards. When you've completed this, you then go to the mizzen at the back and do the same thing. Then you come back to the main mast and put the topmast on, back to the mizzen mast, then up to the top, and eventually you'll end up now starting with the stays. And with the stays you start at the bow and work your way back. The main purpose of these things is to keep the mast absolutely straight as you go backwards. And in terms of the stays, it's the same issue. You want to start at the front and go back, so that as you tighten everything, everything remains tight. If you change that sequence, you're going to suddenly find that you have slack lines on the model somewhere. So you go back to the plan, look at everything, read the book very carefully 2 or 3 times, and then you can start. The first two blocks to be put in according to the plan are the tackle pendants, which are relatively straightforward. And then we start going to the shrouds. You'll also notice that I have a square on the model, and that's because the mast can pull from side to side, and we have to be very careful when we're putting the first shrouds down that it lines up correctly and we don't pull the mast too much to one side or the other while we're putting the first set of shrouds on. We're going to tie these shrouds exactly as has been directed in the book, which means that the loose end must stay forward. I believe the correct term is cable laid, and you will have then your seizings, or what you may be familiar to, your whipping. You'll have one at the lower, the middle, and the top. I've made up the first shroud, and although I couldn't find this measurement, I was able to work it out that it's actually 15 millimeters. So I've put it together, put the 3 seizings on it, and I've put some watered down CA, and I'm going to let it set, because this sets the tone for all the shrouds. So you need to get the first one right and then make sure you're following that. Instructions actually tell you to make up a jig. So here's my 15 millimeter jig, and you just take some wire, spare wire, any wire you have once it's hard, and you use this to bend these spacers, which again are 15 millimeters, which is the spacing between the bottom of the shroud deadeye and the deadeye that comes through the channel. And here we have them in place, so you can see the 2 first shroud deadeyes with the 15 millimeter spacing inside. We attached it here and pre-rigged this one. It came up through the lubber's hole, around the mast, and back down, and then we used the same half-hitch knot here. Took a little while to get this straightened out. And then we just clip it off here, and then we're going to tie it. We put full strength CA on it, full strength PVA on it, and then thin it down with our hands and leave it to dry. And just to make my point, from the bottom here to here, this has been pulled 1/16 across, so that is the correct distance. This will give you a close-up of the installed deadeyes and the shrouds. And we go back to the plan, which will show us the sequence that the shrouds are installed. Now we've got the 2 sets of shrouds on. We tie a clove hitch, and if we want, you can just put 2 little half hitches on it, which I tend to do, which makes it a kind of a square and longish knot, and then you just slide that up, and we do the same thing on the other side. And just to give you an idea, what it looks like, and you can see the knot tied around the mast there. And the mast looks about 90 degrees to the deck, exactly where it's supposed to be. The plan here is the dead-eye lanyard sequence. Just follow it, you'll get used to it. The most important part we need to remember is this is going to be cable laid, so that the loose end of the shroud is going to be facing forward. We're going to put the lanyard on. So the first thing you do is you get 0.5 millimeter natural string, and you tie a figure 8, and it gives you a square knot that will jam in the dead eye when you pull it tight. And that's it. Then you thread the string, and this should be approximately 25 centimeters long, and you get a square knot in the back, and then you follow the sequence that we started off with, which showed you how the lanyard is rigged. And it's really very simple. I also put a little PVA at the end of the line to help thread it through. You also need to make sure that you line up the dead eyes as per the drawing, and don't pull the lanyard very tight when you're rigging it, because it will pull it out of sequence and make it a little more difficult. And that's it there really. And then you lash it at the top of the dead eye with a little half-inch knot. And I will normally put 2. And you don't need to hold it very tight, pull it very tight at this point in time, because you're just rigging all of them. When you've got both sides rigged, now you're going to tension it back and make sure that the mast is absolutely at 90 degrees to the deck. The square knot is called a figure 8 knot, and this is how you tie it. Wrap the line around as though you're doing a half hitch, and then push it through the hole and pull it tight. And you see it looks like a figure 8, but when you pull it, it'll actually end up into a square knot, and that's exactly what you need to prevent it pulling through the block. And that's the first lanyard we've done. You'll see that it looks exactly like the drawing. We'll put a little CA on that square knot. Sorry, we'll put a little watered down PVA on that square knot to make sure it doesn't come out. You continue the sequence of putting the shrouds on going back. You will notice that there's a smaller dead eye here, which is the main topmast breast backstay, and there's a sequence that deals with that when you're putting on the topmast here. So you'll need to follow that sequence as per the plan. And when we finish here, we'll now go to the mizzen mast and do the same thing there. To help keep the dead eyes on the brass pins, we actually use a little clamp in the back, and this works pretty great. Keeping moving along. And we've put on the last of the main backstay, which is the last of the shroud lines in a sense. And we've tightened them not very hard at this point in time. We will really tighten them much harder when it comes to put in the rat lines. We're now going to put on the futtock stave, and to do this we cut a piece of brass wire, I think it's 0.75. You can cut it oversize as I've done here, and you adjust it afterwards. To get the height, it's the same height as the top, the cap of the main mast. So we've marked it on a piece of wood here, and we've transferred it down here, and that establishes the height. If you're going to use a level as I am, you need to first level the boat which I've done here, and then you use that same level to establish the level of the futtock stave. Sometimes it's very hard when you look at it, but it has to be absolutely level to the waterline and to the deck. We've tied the two clove hitches here, and now we're going to just get the height right. Final piece is just to level it. We've painted up the bronze brass wire so that now is black, and its original configuration would have been black leather. Catharpins are a line that runs attaching the two futtock staves, and we make them up using this little jig. You'll see some little brass eyes that were cut on a chop saw, and then using a 0.25 millimeter line, we need to make up 3 of these. The process is you put your 2 little brass sheaves on some nails, and we put the line on it. This is so delicate, and we put CA to lock it in place. And we have finished preparing the catharpins, and then we add thread to either side of this so that we can install them